Monster Hunter is going pay to win. And no, I'm not talking about any layered weapons DLC or anything. It was just announced that Timmy Studio Group will be developing a brand new Monster Hunter game. Timmy Studio Group has developed quite a few games that are not only extremely successful, but it is also very likely that you have heard of some of them. Games such as Arena of Valor, Call of Duty Mobile, and Pokemon Unite, to name a few. In case you aren't aware, these are all mobile titles, so I think it's quite safe to assume that we're going to be getting a mobile game from Timmy Studio. Free-to-play mobile games, to be precise, and with free-to-play, of course, inevitably come all of the microtransactions. That is to be expected. No one is asking Capcom to release a brand new game for free for us to enjoy without being able to make a profit. Their goal with the game is to combine the experiences and strengths of both Capcom and Timmy Studio, allowing Monster Hunter to scale to more platforms with an aim to give global hunters, both experienced and new, the freedom to hunt as they desire anywhere and anytime. But here's the thing, most of the titles produced by the Timmy Studio Group are not only heavily monetized, but also notoriously pay to win. There's a few key questions here, such as, what kind of Monster Hunter game can we expect this to be? What will its business model be, and will it negatively affect gameplay or player progression? Spoilers, it will. So let's answer that first question by taking a brief look into Timmy Studio's games, as there are a few surprises here. Perhaps the most interesting thing is that most of these Timmy Group games are MOBAs, games like League of Legends and Dota 2. So there's a non-zero chance that we'll be getting a Monster Hunter MOBA. And I'm sort of conflicted about this. In a way, it sounds kind of interesting, and I can actually see it somewhat working. Imagine, for example, each of the different weapon types is a character that you get to select, and weapons like the lance, the gun lance, and maybe the hammer are the tank characters of that game, and weapons like the hunting horn or maybe the sword and shield or the bow could be more versatile as supports, or maybe you could have the MOBA with the monsters instead, where you have some big buffy characters like Gravios, for example, being the tank. And you have monsters like Basil that flies throughout the map as the jungler ganking every lane and killing everyone by surprise. It is a pretty interesting idea, but I think that they'll go the route of a gacha game, much like Monster Hunter Riders. In that game, much like any other gacha, you start with a few different free-to-play characters that aren't particularly interesting or powerful, and as you play throughout the game, you will be getting a little bit of currency here and there that you can spend to summon other characters. And of course, the ones that you will want to chase after are the big 5-star characters, the ones that will have special banners and will require a ton of summons, or you'll just need to be really lucky to get them, but they'll be much stronger than the other characters. Monster Hunter Riders essentially rode on this formula, but it seems like that game wasn't very successful as it ended up shutting down last year. That being said, the art style was incredible and it is what appealed to me the most, and I imagine a lot of other players, but because it was such a predatory gacha game, the game ended up getting a lot of backlash from the community, and as such, it simply died down over time. Now, another Monster Hunter game that Capcom has actually published in the past was Monster Hunter Explore, which is actually loved by a lot of people. The gameplay was essentially a very simplified style of classic Monster Hunter, and as far as I know, it wasn't really all that predatory. You would still have the gacha portion of the game, and you would sort of rely on that to get some upgrades and to improve your character, but you still had ways to make yourself more powerful as a free-to-play player. Not only that, but the game also had a ton of cool events and collaborations. This title featured collaborations with series such as Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood as well as Neon Genesis Evangelion. And you would even hunt some monsters that would be changed because of these events. Not only that, but Explore also had some unique and original designs, which I believe look amazing, and I would love to see them in the mainline titles. All in all, this would be the perfect type of mobile game to be getting for Monster Hunter, as it definitely respects the franchise, and the core gameplay itself resembles that of the original Monster Hunter games. Not only that, but there doesn't really seem to be many systems that halt or hinder your progress, and that is why Explore is beloved by so many fans of the franchise. That being said, I really don't think they will be going down this route once again because, well, they ended up shutting down Explore after all. More likely than not, they will be trying a different avenue than these two games, and that is why I really do believe that we will be getting a MOBA game for Monster Hunter. I guess it could also be an augmented reality game like Pokemon Go, but I really don't see that being successful, especially after all this time since Pokemon Go has been released. Now, if this does turn out to be a MOBA, I hope that the microtransactions they have in the game are simply cosmetic. I hope they stick to just stickers or layered weapons and armor sets. I really hope they don't go for armor upgrades or getting better weapons. They most likely will have a season pass or a battle pass, and I really hope they don't lock characters in them like Overwatch 2 does. A lot of you may remember Pokemon Unite, the Pokemon MOBA that made many players upset because of how unfair and pay-to-win it was, to the point where creators like Moist Critical and Beat 'em Ups had to speak on the topic and essentially expose just how much of an advantage you would get in the game by purchasing all different kinds of items and power-ups. Arena of Valor and Honor of Kings are two other games made by Timmy Studio that are very much in the same camp as Pokemon Unite, being other MOBA titles that make most of their money through skins and such, and after doing some research, it seems there isn't a lot of pay-to-win elements here, but there are some power-ups that you may get with in-game purchases. And of course, the Sensei, a mobile game, is your typical turn-based gacha game, very much like Monster Hunter Riders actually, where you roll for different characters and weapons, trying to make them stronger so you can tackle harder content. These games are usually front-loaded with a lot of content that is very easy to do to get you addicted to winning the game, but as you slowly progress through the game you will essentially hit a paywall, where you will either need to grind a lot of the game, having to play it for weeks or perhaps months to progress, or you will need to pay up to power up your characters. As for Call of Duty Mobile, it is, surprisingly, the least pay-to-win game of the entire list, only providing a few progression bonuses on top of paid skins. So you really don't get any benefit whatsoever when you're actually playing. You don't have any advantage over other players. One thing to mention is that Capcom is a company, and as such, its sole goal and purpose is to make profit and make shareholders happy. And by far, what makes the most money nowadays is mobile games. As much as I love Monster Hunter or even Dragon's Dogma and Devil May Cry, and you may feel the same about these and other titles, make no mistake, Capcom is simply investing in a market that has proven to be incredibly financially profitable, time and time again, with games like Genshin Impact and Diablo Immortal breaking record numbers for their respective companies, the latter being an example of utilizing a company's memorable and well-established IP, the Diablo franchise, ironically turning it into a soulless cash grab devoid of any challenge, innovation and player progression. It is likely that Capcom will attempt the same. Probably not to such an extent, but it is important that you do not cloud your judgment just because it is Capcom or just because it is Monster Hunter. At the end of the day, it's a product meant to be consumed and make money. And all we are, regardless of how passionate about the franchise we may be, is consumers. So if you don't like what comes from this, vote with your wallet and don't play it. Capcom already had to shut down a few Monster Hunter mobile games in the past because they were unsuccessful. If this one goes the pay-to-win route and turns out to be a predatory mess, then we'll have to make ourselves be heard. I'm still hoping for the best at the end of the day. I don't want to see any bad Monster Hunter games be released, whether it's on mobile or not. But more importantly, this could have massive ramifications for the Monster Hunter franchise later down the road. What do you think Capcom is going to do if their mobile game turns out to be the most profitable one, maybe even by a large margin? Do you think they'll keep spending all this time and resources developing a game that, in the eyes of their investors, simply isn't as good, in the sense that it doesn't make nearly as much money and costs way more to develop? Or do you think that they'll start to put even more things in the mainline Monster Hunter games, like a battle pass or actual paid weapons and armor, not just cosmetics? Above all else, the impact this game may have for the future of Monster Hunter is what worries me the most. I've been playing Monster Hunter ever since I was a child. I remember playing Freedom Unite until I fell asleep for days on end, and I would hate to see my favorite gaming franchise go in that direction. Do you think this will have any lasting impact on the series? Are we likely to get a battle pass in the upcoming Monster Hunter 6? Let's talk about that in the comments. Click here on screen to watch this video about old school Monster Hunter games, and in the meantime, thank you all so much for watching. My name is Dark Hero, and as always, happy hunting.